welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be starting a new video that I'm pretty excited about, doing something I've never done before, and that's painting a vehicle. So if you've been watching up until this point in the series, we've completely disassembled and mostly rebuilt a 92 Jeep YJ, Jurassic Park style. But what really makes it Jurassic Park is the paint job. So a few things I'm going to show you here before we get started. First thing behind me, you'll notice that my paint bay. So I've just constructed that. It took me about 3 or 4 days and cost about $500 for parts here in Canada. There's another video for that, so you can take a look here if you want to follow that video on how that went. Ultimately, I wanted a way to paint it affordably and with a bay that I could reuse later. So that was kind of the inspiration behind the bay. So even though it looks fairly imposing and maybe even a little bit impressive, it really is quite simple at the end of the day, and you can pack it up, put it away, take it out and use it again. So with that, we'll talk about some of the things I got in front of me here. So Jurassic Park Jeeps from 1992 actually use a single stage paint. So as opposed to a base followed by a clear, it's just a single coat that has both clear and pigment worked into it. So before I do that, you have to apply with a primer. So the primer that I'm using and the paint brand that I'm using is Valspar. So the actual proper paint for a Jurassic Park Jeep is a PPG. It's called LJ1. You can't get it in Canada. It's illegal here. So short of actually importing some illegally, I decided, well, let's find a close match. Someone else on the Jurassic Park motor pool suggested a blend for Valspar, which I'm going to be trying out today and then verifying whether or not I like it. I don't have any proper LJ1 to compare it against, so it's really just a matter of do I like it or not. So the base is actually this primer. So basically you can mix this a little bit thinner and you use it as what's called a sealer. And when you use a sealer, what it does is it seals the underlying metal or the underlying substrate. And then it also creates a bonding material for the paint to apply to. So when you use it as a sealer, it's a little bit thinner, and as a result it spreads easier and you don't need to sand it when you're done. So you got about 8 hours in order to go from the sealer to the top coat. So basically you have to plan it so you're going to be doing it all on the same day. You still can leave it and do it again later, but then it does require that sanding in order to adhere to the paint. So that's the first thing we're doing. The gun that I have for that, so I got these at Princess Auto. They're usually about $70. I think I got them on sale for $39. They're made by Vapor, but pretty much they're every generic brand everywhere. They're all the same. The red one is in a 1.8, so I'm going to use that for the primer. And then I have a blue one in a 1.4 millimeter that I'm going to be using for the paint. So I wanted to have two separate guns, and then I have a single air supply, which you can kind of see plumbed up into the tent behind me. So that's for painting. Prior to painting, I got to clean everything. So for that, I have a spray bottle with some wax and grease remover. So I spray it down, wipe each panel individually with a clean cloth on every swipe, and then move it into the paint bay. Use a tack cloth right immediately prior to paint, and then commence painting. I got a whole getup for myself with the Michelin Man suit, as well as the ventilator as well, or not a full ventilator, but a mask anyway. So again, haven't done this before. I'm going to be suspending parts mostly from the ceiling so I can hit all sides of them. I've got a 80 test fishing line here, what I'm going to be using to suspend the parts. A number of hooks to hook things up. And right now I'll just show you, I've basically projected about 10 different batches of painting, and so I'll just show you my document here. So basically I started with doing the half doors first, and the reason why is I want to compare a couple different shades of paint to see which one I like better. And then I'm going to go forward with the one that I like best and go procure the rest of the paint. So that's why I'm just doing a little bit first. And also it's something simple, it's something big enough that you can actually see it and get an appreciation for what the final product is going to look like. So once I'm on the half doors, then I move into much more of the parts of the Jeep. I tried to leave the tub till later on. That's the biggest one to do, the hardest one to do, and the one that I could probably screw up the most. And so I wanted to leave that until I got my skills a little bit down and a little bit practice, because again, I haven't really done this before. So, and then later on, we're going to do some Raptor liner on the bottom of the Jeep and some of the undercarriage parts. And then moving on, of course, to adding the red striping, which makes the identifiable Jurassic Park Jeep 73. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be starting today. It's the middle of January 2021. I'm projecting this will maybe take me between 4 to 6 weeks to complete, and I'm pretty excited to get at it. So thanks for being here, and sorry Jurassic Jack is not here today, but I'm sure you're going to see him throughout the video, and he will be entertaining as always.
And here we are. Say hi.
Hi!
Yeah, so I found Jurassic Jack for the voiceover. Okay, we're starting here. These are the half doors. Remember you worked on these. And so this is the wax and grease remover. I put this in here just to remind people that there's a lot of stuff you're not going to see in this video, and specifically that's the cleaning and the prep. And you're going to go through, I bought 18 rolls of the blue paper towel from Costco, and you're going to use all of that and then some. And using my fishing line here, and mixing up the primer. And I bought this little lid here just from Home Depot. It worked pretty good to pour the primer. And I needed a solution to pour the reducer. And then that's the activator. As you can see, I got kind of messy, but I'll show you some ideas I came up with that a little bit later. And so they're filtering it, pouring it in, and wiping everything down with a tack cloth. So I had a bundle of tack cloths that I got off Amazon as well. So this is right before you're going to spray anything, you got to get the tack cloth in there. All right, so there we're spraying now. See that there? Are you watching?
Yes, human.
Yes. This stuff, so we're spraying it as a sealer, so it's a little bit thinner than a normal primer. Basically, you just add an extra part of reducer, and then it gives you an 8-hour window to paint, and you don't have to sand, which is really, really cool. So this is a Valspar product, DTM 2004. And now we're coming through with the first coat of sand beige. So this sand beige is actually a Valspar product, and I'll show you the actual, the exact type of this paint. So this was, I bought 2 kinds of paints to try them both out. This is the second one. I'm just throwing on the second coat. This is actually an Endura paint. And here's how they compare. So you notice the Valspar is a little richer color, and the Endura is more of kind of, I'd say, a military green. But what this doesn't take into account is how durable the Endura was. And I didn't really notice that until I kind of decided to go with the Valspar and had to sand the Endura down. That stuff is hard, and it's really unfortunate the Valspar isn't as hard. So anyway, I went back to the store, and I asked them to mix the Valspar, and what I realized is they actually hadn't given me the paint that I had asked for, which another Jurassic Park Motor Pool member had created and had mixed up. So I ended up getting a different class, if you will, of the Valspar paint. So it's a more higher end version of it, and that's what I'm actually going to be painting here. I kind of took a risk that it was going to look the same, and as you'll see, it doesn't quite look the same, but we'll get there in a moment. So here we are, we're spraying the sealer on all the doors, inside and out. Yeah, it's a gray sealer. Looks pretty good on its own. And here I got this little mixing unit, and like, oh my god, you want this thing. Especially when you're dealing with a metallic paint where you have to give it a good mix right before you spray it. And it's just so nice, and you never have to put the lid back on. I left it this way for a couple months. And so here's what I started using for my reducer. Sometimes, depending on the plastic, it will melt the plastic, so be careful with that. And we're gunning it down. So this gun is a 1.4 millimeter, and it's just a cheap gun, as I talked about in the introduction, that I got from Princess Auto. I think I got them on sale for 40 bucks.
This reminds me of something.
Yeah?
You like that one scene in the Polo Express when like he's going through that train cart of like dolls and they're like all hanging from the ceiling?
Yeah. Okay, sure. Go with that. All right, hitting them with all the, I think this is the second coat now. So again, it's a sealer with 2 coats. That's what we're doing on all these. And so now you can see how they compare. And so you'll notice it's not quite the same. This is in natural daylight. The good news is the one that I bought a gallon of, the 543 on the right, is my favorite of the bunch. So it is the best quality, it is the most expensive, and it was the one that I happened to have. So that's what we proceeded with. So I did go back and repaint the half doors over again, just so you know, it's not shown here. But now we're diving into stuff. So we've got the windshield frame. This is part of the rear window and interior molding. So that's a plastic that I'm painting there. And this primer you can kind of use on anything. You notice I did tape off where the red was, and in the end that didn't really matter, because I ended up repainting the red anyway. Alright, so now I'm getting the spray gun configured here. I'm just playing with the spray patterns and the volume of paint just to try some different things out. So you'll want a board like this to do the same thing. And once I get it where I like it, I'm ready to start painting. So here we're doing, I think, yeah, this is one of the side steps or the wheel arches. So these are actually a flexible plastic, and I did not use a flexible polymer, so you can get like a compound that adds flex to the paint. Honestly, I just forgot about it, so I don't know if I'm going to regret this later, but I'm just painting it with the standard sand beige Valspar here. And it's taken to it pretty good. I mean, that primer will kind of work on anything. Same thing here with the running boards, I guess you would call them. They're kind of a sad state for running boards, but that is kind of what they are. I don't suggest stepping on them, by the way. But the paint's, you know, adheres real nice, and that sealer really is a terrific way of doing it. And putting on a second coat for a lot of these hanging pieces here. Honestly, working with the fishing line was a great idea. It just makes life so much simpler. You don't have to worry about holding these things or moving them. They just hang there. You'll notice it's starting to get foggy in there. That's because the filters in the back were getting plugged and it really wasn't sucking anymore.
Wow, it's amazing. I believe the rest on there. I just needed to see that. Yeah, stuck to the floor.
All right, so getting more of the components. I've already primed these and adding the sand beige to them. Really actually came out nice on this roll bar here. It was kind of an adventure to get this thing hung in here just right and get all the sides of it, but managed to get her done. As I was mentioning before, you notice how it's starting to fog up because of the filters. I actually ended up removing the filters completely and just venting directly outside. It meant that my fans got dirty, but that was really the only downside to it. I had some concern about explosion risk, but it's just, there's not enough paint in the air to really cause a problem, and it's really the solvents, it's not so much the paint. As you can see, it's really starting to fog up as I'm getting some of the back pieces. Now here's just a reminder that I haven't stopped cleaning them all, so you're just not seeing it in the video, but every one of these is getting a whole bunch of that blue paper towel rubbed all over it with the cleaner. There's two kinds of cleaners. There's a mild and an aggressive. Generally, if it's metal, I'm using the aggressive, and if it's plastic, I'm using the mild. And then getting over to the hood here. So this was a big component, and it was an exciting one to do. I did discover that I got a few drips on that lower edge by painting it this way. Painting it flat would probably be safer, or just being really mindful of how much paint you're using as you're doing this. And flipping over to the inside here, one thing you'll notice is, and this is at a 2x speed, but you notice it's getting a little blotchy. This happened because my gun got a little bit dirty. I kind of started cutting some corners, and I started getting a blotchy finish. You can really see it right there. See, it's kind of sputtering. And what happened was, even though the paint didn't look bad, the finish was wrong. It was very grainy. I ended up having to repaint the hood more times than once, by the way, but only once due to the center blotchy problem. So let that be a lesson. Make sure you clean your gun really thoroughly every single time, because even though it kind of looks okay, it ends up not being the same as everything else. And you notice here, doing the front grille, still a little bit blotchy. This one I never redid, but as a result, it was also it wasn't as strong. I noticed that the resilience of the paint changed from one panel to the next, and I kind of traced it back to something as simple as keeping your gun clean. So again, recommend that too. This was a fun piece to paint. It was just really complex and lots of different parts, and it really looks neat when it's done. You can kind of see that splotchiness there. All right, really dancing around here. And now an exciting piece. this would be obviously the roof, where I did some of my fancy interpretation on Jurassic Park here. And getting tough to reach this here. Again, this was another piece that was really hard to get into the paint booth in a way that I could actually access it all, and I did have trouble getting that top edge, which is seen in the final product. And now I got my gun all cleaned up. It's working a lot better now. And I'm going to be painting, you're mostly only going to see me painting the outside, but I also paint the complete inside as well. And it really turned out nice on the inside, as you'll see in a bit.
Start here on one that's not as important. Oh yeah, look at that. That's so sticky. Hey, don't touchy McTutcherson.
Alright, so Jack and I are going to take off the rest of the decals here. It's challenging to pull off the tape because it's still a little bit tacky, so you can't touch the sand beige. And here, this was kind of a nightmare. So these are decals I got, or stencils more specifically, from a guy on the Jurassic Park motor pool, and the stencils kept just collapsing on me and ripping, and it made it really hard to get this off, especially while it was wet. So in retrospect, I'm not sure if I should have done it wet. It felt like the right thing to do at the time. And the funny thing was, just this random masking tape that I slapped on here, it came off just like with ease and looked terrific, which was the opposite of what I was expecting. I thought the stencil would work out real well and this would be kind of a nuisance, but they're looking pretty sharp here.
Alright, so there's the completed roof. It turned out pretty good. For my first time removing decals, I probably could have done a little bit better in a few places. Anywhere where I kind of got some paint on the red, just used a little bit of the cleaner, and that would pull it off with a Q-tip. Actually, you could even draw lines with it. It was actually pretty cool. But anyway, just give you a kind of a close-up.
Alright, so now we're working on the tub. First part here, we got it set on these sawhorses here, so they're custom height, and it was just way easier to paint on its side. And I'm just tackling the sealer here first on the inside, and then also applying the sealer to the bottom. I actually mixed the sealer wrong when I got to the bottom. I forgot to put the 2 parts of reducer in, and so I was actually spraying it as a primer, and it went on really thick, and it actually kind of looked gross. So I ended up having to go back and sand it once it had dried to make it adhere, which is the difference between the sealer and the primer. But thankfully I wasn't painting it with paint, so that's going to help. And here I'm just giving an overview of kind of the prep again, just so you see what it sort of takes. And this is about 2 times speed, but you can see the beauty of the sand beige, that metallic in there. It's really just a work of art. It was fun every single time I mixed that. It never got old. But yeah, this is the process, and that's about all the paint you can get in a run. And now we're painting the inside first. And unfortunately, I had the Johnny Mocam on here, but I didn't have it aimed just right, so you're kind of missing a little bit of it here. But again, from before, remember how it was splotchy before? Like, look how clean this is. You can really tell the difference when you get the gun set up right. Like, it just comes out like butter, and it changes not only the look of the paint, but the texture, the durability of the paint. So prep really, really, really is important. that's really coming together. Now next, I'm going to be applying this gravel guard to the underside. Previously I mentioned Raptor liner. When I went to the store to buy Raptor liner, he said use this instead. This is literally what it's meant for, and it's only $25 a can, and that's a Canadian price, so it's probably cheaper everywhere else. And it comes this little $25 gun with it. So for 125 bucks, I did the entire underside of the Jeep. So this is where my little subwoofer compartment is, back in the corner. So I masked it off a bit just so I didn't have the bumpy section up against the sub box. And I'm blasting it at about a 60 psi. And I can't remember. I think that was 60 at the compressor. I can't recall exactly. No, I think it was 60 at the gun. Changing the pressure will change the texture, so you can go as high as 80, 85, 90, and just pick a texture that you like. And I'll show you what my texture looks like here in a little bit, but I was really happy with this stuff. Like, you know, I want to paint everything in my life with this stuff. Like, it's durable, it's beautiful, it's so easy to apply. You have to use the same sealer for it. You know, a kid could do this and it would look perfect. You don't have to worry about overlap or multiple layers. It just goes on beautifully, and you can add more later if you screw it up. It's just beautiful stuff. And here just gives you an idea of what it looks like on the underside. So really nice. It's got a little bit of a rubbery texture as opposed to the Raptor liner, just to absorb those rocks.
Alright, so nearing the end of the painting, the last piece I have yet to paint would be the exterior edges and the stripes on the body, and then the stripes on some of the other pieces. So so far so good. You know, it's only been a couple weeks max since I started, so it really goes quick once you get everything set up and everything's ready to paint and just kind of bang through them. You know, there'll be lots of lessons learned that I'll kind of cover, you know, elsewhere in the video, but so far this has probably been the more rewarding part of the project, because you get instantaneous results for all the work that you've put in. And it is going relatively quickly despite kind of all the content that there's been. So I'm pretty happy with the booth. I do have the Paint Bay video here. I'll just link to it. You can take a look at that and see kind of how I put all that together. But it's worked pretty well. One of the biggest learnings is the fact that it's like -20 out right now, Celsius, and I'm still able to paint in the garage. So you can hear the furnace in the background. It's running pretty hard. But when I do run the vents out the back, you know, the temperature does drop in here, but not so much that you can't continue painting. So really happy with that. Happy with how it's turned out so far. Really happy with how the underside gravel guard worked out. That looks amazing. I think it's a must do. Putting paint on the bottom just isn't gonna look that great, and this really finishes up nice, and it gives you that sound and heat insulation, and of course the protection from gravel and rocks. So now with that, I'm going to continue going on this. I'm going to have to give this another sand because I didn't mask it before, and it's got kind of a textured finish from the gravel guard because it was upright before. So I'm going to get tackling into that and hopefully get this whole thing painted and wrapped up, and we can move on to the next video. So stay tuned.
All right, so starting off here, putting the sealer on the front. So this was a sandblasted surface, and I wasn't exactly sure how smooth it would be when I was done. We'll touch on that a little bit later, but nonetheless, I was able to spray right over the sandblasted metal, and then right up over here on the top, which will eventually be a red stripe. But I've decided to seal it all right now, and now we're applying the sand beige. And so after a couple coats of this, what I discovered was it almost looked the same as the rest of the Jeep. So the sealer and the paint together really filled it in nicely. I'd say if you use a little bit thicker of a sealer, you could be done without any filler. Now I'm measuring the stripes. This was a laborious exercise here. One thing I learned throughout this process is when you see I'm sticking them and unsticking them, don't do that. Like when you stick it down, leave it or replace it, because as soon as you keep unsticking it, you're gonna develop the adhesion is just gonna get lost a little bit. And doing the back one here again, and you know, usually you kind of line these up with all the pieces of the Jeep together. I had to do them separately, and it meant there was a lot of changes and, you know, figuring it out. The Jurassic Park Motor Pool has an excellent resource you can get on this. Finally got the hood in a situation I could paint it, and mapping all that out. and putting on the stencils again. So these stencils, although I had some issues with them, yeah, they make life impossible without them. And putting on JP73s here. Again, measure 15 times and attach. You notice I had to put on the fenders and the hood just to measure these out and get them perfect, because these do span that gap there. These ones ended up working a lot better, these stencils, than the larger JP ones for whatever reason, not sure. And now I'm hitting it with the red. Now this red was the original red of the Jeep, so it's actually a different brand of paint. It's not Valspar, it's that Endura brand that I had trialed for the sand beige. And man, this stuff lays on nice. Like, just look at this here. Like, it has a little bit of an orange peel. I don't know if that was due to me or just the paint or the prep, but to me, it just, compared to the sand beige, it was just so rewarding to apply this. You can just see how nice it really turned out. And it also matches the existing red that I had on the roof. So I'm not sure this is a perfect red for a Jurassic Park Jeep. For that, you'd use Ford Performance Red, but I really like this red. It matched up with the wheels that I had powder coated earlier. And there you can see the speckle that comes from the sand beige. So that's a bit of that orange peel I mentioned there, but you know, we could polish that out, and I might do a little bit of polishing on this yet. Painting the mirrors, you can see them on the side, and then, you know, just hitting all the remaining bits of the stripes and all the accessory pieces. I decided to do these again just because it would look a lot nicer. And again, not forgetting, prep is everything, and so I'm hitting these, just a reminder, every time with the tack cloth before you apply the sealer. And obviously I didn't even need to use the sealer on this, pardon me, because I was going directly over the paint, so it's just a slight scuff, and then you paint right over the sand beige. Again, this red just really goes on nice. And hitting the window frame as well. So the window is funky because it's red on one side and beige on the other, so it's a bit complicated to get it masked off, and I didn't do that flawlessly, but it was pretty good. And then we're also going to hit up the fender as well with the 73s, of course. And again, while this paint is going to be wet, we're going to try and pull those decals off.
What if I fuck it up?
You can pull it faster. It's looking so good. Oh my god, that looks so good. Alright, so I have an assistant here helping out. Someone who has fingernails, that really makes this easier. And yeah, we're pulling off the stencils here a little more delicately this time after what happened last time. Jack is back, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah, there he is.
She's got a hibernation.
Yeah, that's good. So these were tough. She had a little more dexterity than I did. I'm a bit of a gorilla, and I'm not so good at this kind of work. So kind of getting them off slowly but surely, and it's hard to get them started. That's really the thing, and having nails really makes the difference. Anyway, so getting the 3 here.
Why do you sound so quiet, sir?
Because this is sensitive work, as you can see. Delicate work.
No. I declare it not.
Watch yourself. Didn't see you in there.
Hey, you shush.
Yes, shushy. Alright. So that's coming together. Oh. Careful. She ended up ruining a pair of pants over this, and so that was costly for me. Okay. And there it is. There's your Jeep, JP73.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Yeah. And this is just pure painting bliss right here. Just look at that coming off there. Ugh. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that something?
I have to look at the dinosaurs' droppings.
Thank you for that. That's just a thing of beauty. God, that red's so nice. If I could have, I would have painted the whole thing with the Endura paint. It's an Alberta product, and I was really pleased with it. I just couldn't get it in the right tone, so I do recommend.
Alright, so the painting's done. Here is the completed tub. I stuck on one of the half doors just to take a look. One of the things I was concerned about by painting all the individual pieces separately is, am I going to have a color match later? because you're working on different days, you mix the paint a little bit differently, different temperatures, different circumstances. It doesn't always cure the same. I think I'm pretty much okay there. These ones look perfect, even though they were painted weeks apart. But it is nonetheless a concern I have. If I have to go back and repaint the entire Jeep with one more top coat later, it'll actually be a lot easier to do, because you just got to mask things off, scuff it up, and apply another layer of paint. So that'd be like a weekend project compared to this, which ended up being about 7 weeks from when I built the paint bay till now. And I think I had 33 different components I had to paint, in many cases separate colors. The gravel guard on all the undercoatings and so on. I added some gravel guard inside the door here as well, just for scuff protection. But overall, I'm happy with the colors. The Valspar paint is the highest end single stage paint that they make. I'm a little concerned that it's soft. Like, you can scratch this, and it might have just been not fully cured when I was kind of maybe being a little bit aggressive with it, but I'm concerned with that, and I don't know that you can polish it out, being that this is very much of a matte finish. The red, on the other hand, is a very slick gloss finish. That'll actually be easy to buff out, and I do have a little bit of, where the plastic was covering it up when I was trying to paint the other pieces, and kind of maybe roughed up the red a little bit, but I can polish that out. So really happy with how it went. It's a very rewarding part of the project because you have instantaneous results. You can see how your auto body work fared. All along here, remember I had a whole bunch of holes drilled in here for the soft top roof, and now you can't even tell they were ever here. So I think my auto body skills got pretty good in the end, and it is rewarding to see it all kind of come together here. So definitely a doable project at home. Give yourself some time. Don't rush through it. I ended up using a little more than a gallon of paint, but that was mostly because I made some mistakes and I had to do some repaint and get some new paint, and that could also cause blending problems as well. Anyway, so that's about all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed this. Definitely something that you could do at home, and is a rewarding experience if you put in the effort. Next step for me is getting this paint bay down, getting this thing out of here, and starting to put the main Jeep back together. So hopefully things are going to start moving really quickly now. It is the end of February 2021. I want to have this on the road in June of 2021. So that means I really want to get that engine going pretty quick and get all the seals tested and get all the systems charged so I can find leaks and so on, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of debugging considering I've built the Jeep basically from scratch. So that's that. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and if Jurassic Jack was here, we know he'd do something insane, but he's not. So thanks a lot. Bye.